Canada, 500,000 people lost power. Restoration underway, but it will take days. Recovery will take far longer.
And amid that recovery, one of the big conversations here is, of course, how hurricanes are historically rare in this part of the world. But scientists point to our climate crisis and how even this far north, oceans are warming. Of course, warm water is basically hurricane fuel. So some scientists say storms like this, unfortunately, could become a new normal for Canada. Willie, I'll send it back to you.
Maggie Vespa in Nova Scotia. Maggie, thank you very much. Russian President Vladimir Putin is facing more resistance at home today to his plan to send hundreds of thousands of additional soldiers to the front lines of Ukraine. Thousands of protests have taken to the streets across Russia in rare displays of dissent as fighting intensifies on the front lines. NBC's Jay Gray is in a
It's Defense Ministry video Moscow wants the world to see. Framed by these images, it does not. Resistance to the mobilization order from President Vladimir Putin brutally crushed. More than 730 protesters arrested this weekend, while lines build at the border. Those eligible for the call-up, desperate for a way out.
I'm afraid to be mobilized. I don't want to participate in this war, so I decided to escape.
Russian forces struggling after stunning advances by Ukraine fighters, taking back huge swaths of territory and millions of dollars worth of Russian equipment. This Ukrainian soldier says will repair this tank and use it to cut down more Russians. Determined to tighten its grip on the areas in Ukraine it still controls, the Kremlin holding referendums on Russian rule. Ukraine and Western allies calling those votes a sham, neither fair nor free. This video appears to show poll workers going door to door with ballots accompanied by armed soldiers. While in Mariupol, voters go to the polls amid the rubble of a city destroyed by weeks of Russian shelling. Some who escaped the ruins now living in Kyiv, disgusted by what they call fake referendums. This man saying they ruined the city. They killed thousands of people. As the war rumbles on, Russian strikes hitting a building in Zaporizhia in the south, Ukrainian forces surging to retake control of Voisopilia further west, the town now liberated, but at a terrible cost. Most of the buildings in the small village look exactly like this, shelled and burned out. Most of the people who live here had gone, except for the elderly who say they're just not going anywhere.
Extraordinary pictures. Jay Gray in Ukraine. Jay, thanks so much. Chuck Todd is NBC's political director and moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck, good morning. I know this morning you have on with you the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. It's been quite a week for Russia with these nuclear threats from Putin, protests in the streets, near universal condemnation of Russia at the UN. So what will you want to know from Jake Sullivan about where this war stands and what they're looking at from Vladimir Putin at this point?
Well, you know, on one hand, Putin's actions are the actions of somebody in retreat, somebody who's losing a war. So the question is, how does the West and help Ukraine press this advantage? It's pretty clear what Putin really wants to do here, which is he's calling up more troops because he's trying to drag out the war. He's doing the referendum because he's trying to create some sort of effort to essentially land grab and then start a negotiating process. So I think the questions I have for Jake Sullivan are, what's the U.S. going to do? Putin's in a weak moment right now, and yes, he's dangerous at the same time. How do you both press your advantage and not push him to the brink where he does something stupid with nukes?
Vladimir Putin back into the corner of many foreign policy experts have said is a very dangerous thing. Chuck, we'll look forward to that interview this morning. Thanks so much. Much more on Meet the Press. As I mentioned, Chuck is joined by President Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. Anti-government protests are sweeping across Iran this morning. Iranians, many of them women, are clashing with security. A couple weeks after a 22-year-old woman died in the firing of Iran's so-called morality police. She was accused of violating Iran's strict Islamic dress code, and now women are fighting back against it. North Korea fired a ballistic missile off its east coast early this morning. South Korea condemned the test as a serious provocation for what comes as an American aircraft carrier arrived in the region for joint military exercises with the South Koreans. And Team USA is hoping to bring home the President's Cup today, but they do have a fight on their hands. 20-year-old Tom Kim gave the international team a lift on Saturday. And that birdie putt on the last hole gave his team a one-up victory over Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, cutting into the American lead. But the U.S. team still leads 11-7 with 12 singles matches to play today at Quail Hopper in Charlotte. And you can catch all the action today at noon Eastern here on NBC and on Peacock. Let's turn now and get a quick check of your local Sunday weather.
Clouds and sunshine out there for us across the area today. We do have a cold front pushing its way in. That's going to provide us with relief. But out ahead of it, it's still quite warm. We're working our way up into the mid-90s as we head through this afternoon. You'll notice the front though slipping its way in. We can pop off an isolated shower or thunderstorm, but it's very hit or miss in variety. Most locations stay dry with some sunshine. And again, temperatures hot today. We cool it back down as we get into the day tomorrow, though.
Straight ahead, the highs and lows.